Hello, welcome back to Hampshire Cricket Fans Podcast. We've had a little summer break, and some of you might say that Hampshire have had a similar summer break as we've been in the T20 campaign. We're not going to dress this podcast up as something positive. I think we're going to have 30 or 40 minutes now of potentially quite negative chat. We'll do our best not to slip into that, but I think the results speak for themselves. Phil, welcome back.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, happy summer holidays or of sorts. Anyway, yeah, there isn't much way of dressing this up. It's been a pretty awful T20 campaign. I was, after the Lord's final and the kind of buzz that we had in that last recording we did, I think we were both just saying off air now that even in like preparing some notes and things, we're just getting demoralised the more and more we thought about everything that had happened. But Andy, let's. I was going to suggest that Ian's put as the headline of this our T20 autopsy. I feel like a 2-minute silence might be a more appropriate analysis of the campaign so far.
And we've not even finished. I mean, we've still got 2 games to go at the time of recording. Wednesday morning, I'm going to be off to the Oval later. Not expecting a lot there, and then there's of course Gloucestershire at home on Friday. I think when we closed off the last one, I think we were both of the opinion that there was absolutely no reason why it wouldn't perhaps be another visit to Edgbaston. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, I think we were kind of touting a white ball double, and I think certainly people on our Twitter poll were expecting us to certainly clear the group, and for the most part, get to finals day. But well, it definitely didn't turn out like that.
We did. We did a Twitter poll just before it started, which we received 61 votes. 95% of the votes said we would get out of the group as a minimum. There was only one person, our loyal listener and very shrewd guy on Hampshire cricket, Mark Budden, that publicly admitted to some concerns that perhaps this wasn't going to be our season. But I don't expect that Mark would have seen it being this bad.
Yeah, I think we had a few blows before it really got going as well, and maybe we underestimated the impact that Topley, Crane, and Taylor had kind of had on our 50-over game. That obviously were then ruled out for the T20 blast. Actually, that kind of started to restrict our bowling options. Maybe when a series of games started getting away from us.
Yeah, I mean that's completely true. We most certainly have missed those, but I'm of the opinion that actually the makeshift bowling attack hasn't done that badly.
No,
and I don't particularly put down, or certainly not the majority of defeats to a bowling unit. Unfortunately, it has been almost all on the batting department, I would say.
Yeah, I think we can dissect some of the batting problems in a minute. We'll maybe come back to the bowling as well. Because I think you're right. I think you can't blame some of our batting collapses on the bowlers. Maybe the only thing I would suggest, and this is more a kind of coaching and selection thing, was the kind of composition of our team the right one? Sometimes where we're going in with 6, like not out and out bowlers, but 6 bowlers, 2 of whom are bowling all-rounders, you're thinking, well, our batting is perhaps a little bit light. That doesn't justify the top order throwing away the wickets, but it kind of explains why some of our small collapses became big collapses.
I mean, there was interesting... We'll go on with some examples, but sometimes the bowlers had done their job.
Yeah.
Thinking of the Middlesex game at Lords, where at one stage that did look to be a particularly big target. It was only about 165 in the end. and we were going well, and then it completely fell off a cliff. And then the other one would be Kent at home, for example, where the bowlers have done a great job to restrict Kent to about 140.
Yeah.
And you think, well, what better opportunity for the batsmen to play themselves into form? You've just got to go at 7 and over. That should be a straightforward victory if you're playing well. And unfortunately, what we bowled out for one of our lowest ever T20 scores. Other times you've got Kent at Beckenham, where fair enough it was 200 odd, and we've done very well just to lose by 3 runs. And I suppose it was always going to be difficult after we lost the first 3 games to get much out of the campaign, but you would have expected us to do a lot better. I think in 2016 we didn't have a very good campaign, but we at least finished that one strongly.
Yeah, I was memories of 2016 coming back to haunt me right from the start, because I just remember, I think it was our first game of the season up at Radlett at Middlesex, and it was an absolute horror show when we went up there. To be honest, I was in a bad mood because I was stuck in traffic on the M3 for about an hour as well. But we were all out for a similar total, and I just thought, it's going to go that way again, isn't it? It's not something about the setup wasn't quite right. But yeah, those early 3 defeats, it kind of puts you on a back foot, and particularly, I know it's 4 out of 9 teams kind of qualified, but in a T20 is a little more about luck sometimes. I'm not saying there's no element of skill. Every ball that's delivered has a shot that's played has elements of skill, but in a kind of situation where everyone can beat everyone and it's very much marginal gains, it's just so much of a kind of a burden to think how we're going to turn it around. And there were that our first and to this day only win of the tournament against Middlesex. I thought, okay, maybe there's a chance we can turn it around. I think had that Essex game gone in our favour rather than being a tied match, maybe the ball might have got rolling a bit more by that, and who knows what might have happened.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that, because I think the first 3 games were lost. Then Middlesex turn up, and they seem to struggle almost every year. They're pretty much bottom most years. I think they've only won it once, and then Essex weren't having a particularly good season. So that particular week was the key week where we played Middlesex at home. Brilliant, got a victory. We then played Chelmsford the following day, and that was a tie. So that was a bit disappointing to only get 1 point when perhaps it should have been 2, but it could have been very easily none. And then Middlesex at Lords the following Thursday. So it was kind of like 3 games there that if we could have won 2 of those 3, or even won all 3, which perhaps a more confident side would have done, that would have done us well for the following campaign. But it's kind of just got worse from there.
Yeah, I mean, washouts don't help. I mean, with kind of the ironic cheers of, well, at least we've got another point on the board. But yeah, washed out at Hove, and then another big run chase down at Somerset. I think that was some of the only strong batting performances I can remember. I know we fell 16 short, but at least Vince and Dawson showed up. Well, I say strong batting performance. It was pretty much only them that got into double figures, and they were 74 and 82. So elements of hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is the top 4. It does. If we look at the headline stats of what runs scored, people have scored. I mean, the averages aren't necessarily so important at T20 because you are out there to try and get what you can. But if we take a look at James Vince, he's just scored 150 runs this year at 16. He's normally in the top 10 of run scorers.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got 400, 500 in previous seasons.
Yeah, I feel like this season where he may have even scored like serious amount, like 700-800, something like that. So that shows, and you didn't really see that coming because we'd had such a strong 50 over tournament. Riley Russo, we thought, had turned a corner. He's only scored just over 100 runs.
What did you think of our kind of international signings for this? Did Munro kind of pay off for you or not?
He didn't pay off as we would have liked, but equally, I don't think it was the disaster that some people have been saying. I think new players and overseas signings, especially, if they don't, perform superbly, then they're normally the first players to get criticised.
Yeah. You're kind of looking for a stellar contribution sometimes.
Yeah, so he scored 211 runs at an average of 26, a strike rate of 152. So more than acceptable with his strike rates. But yeah, we'd be looking for probably another 150 runs from him to say that was a satisfactory signing.
Yeah.
But equally, that 211 runs is actually second on the Hampshire scoring charts. And of course, he hasn't played all the games because he's gone off to the Caribbean now.
Yeah, and he seems to be in some form in the Caribbean, actually, having spotted some of the performance on the Sky Sports. Yeah, I think for me, I think he was worthwhile, particularly considering the rest of the batting hasn't really gone great guns either. I think his bowling was a nice little addition as well. I think, I'd feel happier if he was our sixth bowling option rather than going out with the kind of six bowlers that we did. I think it just a bit like when Vince was using himself in the 50 over stuff, just a bit of kind of pace off, maybe on the slightly stodgier wickets or something. He seems to be relatively effective. But Mujib, I mean, like you said, we're talking about, we want stellar impact, maybe, or that's what most of the fans want to say. Did he have a good season or not? I mean, he didn't. He's not ripping it up like Rashid Khan is at Sussex, but he's done all right, I think.
To some extent, he was never going to be as good as Rashid Khan anyway.
Yeah.
One thing, he's only 17.
Yeah.
He's taken 6 wickets at 42. He goes at 7 and over. Economy rate wise, that's absolutely fine. He might have benefited more from having like Crane in the side as well. There might have been a bit more protection there. So I'd say he's done okay. We were very excited about both overseas signings. So whilst they have disappointed, I wouldn't give those reasons as sort of, I wouldn't have those two players as scapegoats, if you like.
No. I think, certainly they don't deserve the blame for this being a catastrophe, really. Would you have them back, though?
I would certainly consider it. It of course depends on who and what else is available. But I think that we haven't seen the best of them, and I certainly wouldn't write them off based on what we've seen, because as after all, Colin Munro's come on here, he's got 3 international T20 hundreds. He's scoring some runs in the Caribbean. It could just be one of those things.
Yeah. What about some of the players that we didn't see this year? I know obviously we had the injuries to Topley and Crane and Taylor. Didn't see anything of Jimmy Adams. The ongoing mystery of where Sean Irvine is. He was at Disneyland, at least at one of the games. I noticed from Instagram. Calvin Dickinson wasn't used. Fidel Edwards is in Canada. What's going on there?
Good question. I mean, to some extent, I can agree with the not using Adams and Irvine in that they're coming towards the end, and we probably want to try and get a settled side and see where we go. Now that we've only got two games left. I don't see any point in bringing those back. However, when perhaps we were at game 7 or 8 and things weren't working, it might have been worth putting those players back in, just to add the experience and maybe even, of course, some runs.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I genuinely don't know what Sean Irvine's position is in the team at the moment, because I think he vented a little bit of frustration on Twitter as well, which is probably understandable given that how the team have been performing. You think, well, he's an experienced guy. He's shown some form in the seconds. It would have been worth changing up at the time, but the decision was taken that he wasn't the person to go to, I guess, which is that's got to hurt in a kind of personal sense. And I don't know whether it, retrospectively, obviously it's easy to say it now that we've continued to lose games, whether it was the right decision not to include him. But
I mean, two things. One, it's a very, very sad end to his Hampshire career, because I think there is no doubt for me that he has played his last game for Hampshire.
Yeah.
And we've had something like 14 years of very good performances from him. And it's a shame that it's ended this way, where he's just been basically frozen out.
Yeah, just not the kind of treatment.
That he's just been with the second 11. He hasn't made squads. When he did make a squad, it was basically to carry the drinks. I think he has deserved better. And it's very sad. One other minor thing, though, at the same time, is that a lot of times I felt that a lot of supporters would always want Sean Irvine dropped.
Yeah.
They were always very quick to criticise Sean Irvine, and I could never understand why. And they go, oh, he doesn't bowl anymore, or things like that. And that now that he isn't getting a game, everyone's demanding his return. I don't understand.
Yeah,
what's
it's a curious one, isn't it? Yeah, I guess there's an element of, when you're an all-rounder, I guess you're maybe the one that's seen as, oh, he hasn't contributed with the bat this time, or he hasn't contributed with the ball, so therefore they're the natural one for like, oh, we'll just get somebody more of a batter in or more of a bowler in, and you're just kind of deemed as surplus, I guess, to that extent. Yeah, it's who knows. Do you think he's career-wise? I mean, do you think he's still got a couple of years in him? Could you see him going to kind of, I don't know, a Glamorgan or a Leicester to kind of revive things? Because I think this is around the time of years where deals start getting done. I don't. You've seen that Alex Lees has gone from, or is going from, Yorkshire to Durham. Will we see his name in the kind of, not on the transfer list, because that's not how cricket does it, but do you think it'll be off somewhere else?
I think it's very hard to say. If I was a Division 2 county, I would certainly be interested in taking him up. But equally, does he want to do that? It potentially means uprooting your family. He's been settled here for a long time. It is a home from home, if you like. I'm sure he would say as much. So I really don't know. I wouldn't be surprised with either outcome.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to be in for anyone either, just on a signings point of view. If I don't, there was it Liam Plunkett that we were rumoured to be interested in and missed out on?
I think there's a couple of names that I've heard rumours that it was Liam Plunkett from Yorkshire who's gone to Surrey. I'm not too disappointed in missing out on that, because he probably spent most of his time with England. The other one we were interested in, but he's gone for Warwickshire, is Liam Norwell from Gloucestershire.
Yes. A couple of other people whose contracts are up. Bairstow. I mean, again, he'd spend his time mainly with England anyway. Adil Rashid. I wonder. I don't know that we need to court that kind of controversy at the moment, given his some of the tensions between him and the Yorkshire fans. Anyway, we'll see. I wonder if anything will come of those. I think maybe strengthening our batting again might be a good idea. I mean, we managed to bring in Sam Northeast this time last year, but I wonder whether there is anyone else out there that might be helping. But then again, would they want to sign for potentially a second division team?
Yeah, very much so. I think it is going to perhaps depend on which division we find ourselves in. And I think the problem is that all season that the batsmen at times, bar of course the 50 over game, just found themselves all out of form at the same time together. And there's not a lot that could have been done. And in a way, with the T20, would you have been surprised? I would have, if Vince, Russo, Munro, North East have all effectively lost form at the same time together.
Yeah, I think even in the kind of styles of play, when because Monroe and Russo are similar in their kind of attacking nature. Vince might be a bit more orthodox, but when the early wickets kind of go down, they're finding, do you know what? Maybe I can't go for some of these bigger shots because if we lose a third, oh no, it's too late. We haven't either rocketed onto a healthy score where you think, well, if we lost wickets now, it's not going to impact us too much. So I think maybe becoming overcautious or uncertain about exactly how they're going to approach the game because of the wickets we've lost has basically done none of them any sort of favours in their kind of the opening partnerships or the kind of power plays where we found ourselves really adrift of the game too early and leaving too much for everyone else kind of following in behind.
But weirdly, sometimes it's gone the other way round, hasn't it? Where Middlesex, Lords, for example, that we did have a good start in the bat, and probably the best example of this would be Glamorgan on Friday night at Cardiff, where I think it was something like 91 without loss off the first 7, and then 61 for 7 off the last 13.
Yeah,
that we did see it a little bit in the 50 over games where sometimes after a good start, the later middle order struggled to come in and step up a gear and clear the ropes, and that would be what I'd probably attribute those 2 defeats to.
Yeah, it's just not been our year.
No, it hasn't. I mean, we must certainly at the same time, we can certainly give credit to Liam Dawson, 262 runs at 29, a couple of occasions, Kent away, Somerset away. He nearly got us home, but hasn't had quite the support around him. Do you think he could have been moved up the order sooner?
Yeah, I mean, it was touted a few times, and I guess if he's the guy that's in form, then it would have been the kind of logical thing. But I don't know whether it's a similar kind of thing that people say with kind of Joss Butler, I guess, and the England setup is where do you bring him in, because you want him there at the end to take advantage of the last 3-4 overs if you know that he can hit it big. The worry is if you get him too early and he's dismissed, and then we haven't got anything big coming in later, or we've got people out of form who, when you're pushing for or hoping for, I don't know, 10 and over or something like that, we don't actually have the big guns there to actually get that. I don't know. It's a tough one. It is a tough one. I think Dawson's one of the only players to come out with kind of positive credit from the tournament, like genuine positive. I think Chris Wood as well is my other hero. He doesn't let you down. T20, you know what you're going to get. Was it 15 wickets? Economy maybe a bit higher than he'd like this year. He's just over the 8s, but I mean he must be up there. I did a little quiz beforehand. I've forgotten who actually was on top of it, but up there with our leading T20 wicket takers of all time. And another solid season.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he's got 15 at 20, economy rate of 8.2, but equally, when I compared that to the top wicket takers in the whole competition, he's 15th, and the Blast is actually a very fast scoring competition. So 8 and over is actually probably okay. I mean, we've had some really good economical spells from Liam Dawson where he's been putting the pressure on this season, and he goes at 7.3, for example. I assumed that he would have gone something more like 6, but it shows how fast scoring the Blast is.
Yeah, I guess you look at an economy rate like 8, and that's realistically, if you're going at 8, opposition finishing on 160, and 160 doesn't really seem like that big a target these days, does it? So that kind of says it all, really.
And especially when Chris Wood, he bowls at the start when the field is up, and sometimes we've been defending a well below par total, and of course he bowls at the end when perhaps the opposition are going at us. So I think his 8.2 in the wider concept of the game is perfectly acceptable. Where you can see that we've let ourselves down is the batting. That our highest run scorer is Liam Dawson, and he's only just made it into the top 40 for the whole country. So that's obviously 18 counties. And if our best batsman is actually an all-rounder batting at 6 and he's in the top 40, then that tells you exactly why it's gone wrong this season.
Yeah. Well, we did say this was going to be an autopsy of sorts. So what changes?
It is hard to know what to do. I can completely understand why we've tried to not change the team too much, because in my opinion, do we have anyone better than, say, James Vince not in the side? No, we don't.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't expect him to have a year or a season like this again in a hurry.
Yeah.
Riley Russo, well, we just can't. I can never make my mind up about him. I think sometimes he's turned the corner, and then he throws up a run of scores like this. So I've got no idea what we do there, but they're obviously going to continue playing him. We talked about the overseas Munro. I would play him again, but equally, if we could get somebody that we thought would do better, then that's fine. But that isn't possible at this stage. Sam Northeast has had a quiet time, and again, looking at his previous T20 run scoring for Kent, this is a characteristically poor season for him, but he's still a really, really good player. So it is hard to know what you can do with regards to the batting.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, and I think people felt just frustrated. And I think some of my loyal listener / my brother was kind of saying on Twitter as well. It's, at the end of the day, we have just won a white ball competition. We should be positive. Generally, it was like, well, we've won a trophy. Let's just go out and enjoy these T20 games. I can't say that I did, but that was, maybe we shouldn't feel so aggrieved at what we've witnessed, given that we have won something this year. It's not It's not like they've suddenly become bad cricketers. These are people that got to a Lord's final and pretty much dominated, that as a competition. So
I can understand that only 3 teams or 4 teams, if you count Division 2, are going to win a trophy this year, and we've already got one in the bank. But I think that's why it makes this T20 Blast campaign so confusing.
Yeah.
I think that's my overall feeling is I just think about it and I just don't understand. Like, you can look at the numbers and you can go, well, he's failed, he's not very good, and so on and so on. but I don't know why they have failed at this point.
Yeah.
You know, what has caused them to fail? Is it just a freak, or is it something that perhaps the signs were there before, and in the 50 over, because you get more time to rebuild and things like that, that we'd perhaps got away with it, and that this was perhaps an accident waiting to happen?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. The 50 over allows for, periods of kind of ebb and flow, doesn't it? Where things, you can take your kind of over, or let a couple of maidens go and rebuild after you lose a wicket. Whereas when we were losing wickets here, we just had to keep going. And then lose some more wickets. And the collapses seem, I guess, more spectacular because it's a more aggressive game.
And it's something as well. I mean, it's not unique to us. I mean, I look at the North Group and Northamptonshire, again, a side like Hampshire, where they've had a really good prolonged period of T20 success. 5 years, 2 trophies, 3 finals day, that sort of thing. And I think they've only got 1 win themselves this season. That you can see that T20 perhaps is form is more fickle, and that things can change around more quickly. Durham are flying at the top of the North, and I know they had points deductions last season, but they were really, really struggling last season. But this year, they're pretty much, going to be a finals day, aren't they?
Yeah, looking like at the moment. Sit right, white ball. Let's forget about it. Well, not forget about it. Let's treasure some of the memories. Let's forget about this season. We've got a pretty important conclusion to the championship coming up.
Yeah, we have indeed. And you wonder how much will this T20 campaign affect the remainder of the championship? Because if you like, Vince, North East and Russo will be needed to score us some runs in the championship to help us stay up. How will this T20 experience affect them?
Yeah, I think it's. I guess if we'd launched into a series of like championship games on the back of the Lord's final, you'd think, right, spirits are high, everyone's kind of in some form, it'd be great. But now we've had 6 weeks of, smacking out of the park or attempting to. Is there batting in the kind of the right mindset? Or I guess as an elite sportsman, they've got to some extent be able to shut out, mentally, like disappointment and things like that, and bring out that element of kind of bounce back ability. So maybe it won't have any impact on them at all. Maybe there might be a lingering kind of thing. Maybe from the moment it looked like we're out of the tournament, they stopped practicing T20 stuff altogether, and they've just been in their heads, in the championship zone, and that's why our T20 performances haven't even improved. Perhaps, who knows?
Yeah, no problem. I think that there's one of these things where, they will have written off the T20. They will have put it to the back of their mind. The concern for me is when there was, I think, a round of championship fixtures a few weeks ago. Now, Hampshire weren't involved in that, but there was a whole round of games in both divisions. And what was immediately obvious, despite the hot weather and what should have been glorious batting conditions, barely any sides were making runs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if that's going to be, that's going to happen to Hampshire as well, that we're going to be playing Notts starting this Sunday, the 19th, and we're going to be, we could be vulnerable there. It'll be the same for Nottinghamshire, of course, and it'll be the same for every other side in the Championship, but are we able to get over this bad patch of form?
Yeah, I think. Well, not Championship-wise, they've won as many as they've lost, but they're up there in third. They have played one game more than most of the other teams around them, so maybe that's a slightly false position. I, we're not saying we're in must-win territory, but we need some healthy points on the board, and well, yeah. But I mean, batting wise, we do need people to turn up. Who knows? I wonder. What do you think the side's going to line up as? Because we've seen Allsop keeping in the most recent T20 games ahead of Lewis McManus.
Yeah, we have. I think that I think Allsop will, for the time being, retain his place. Yeah, it's a difficult one. Trying to think, of course, who's available, who's not injured, and so on. I would imagine that the bowling attack would be Abbott, Berg, Edwards, Dale-Steyn, with Liam Dawson doing the spin. Where does that leave us? So that's 5. Allsop would keep, so that's 6 players, and then we need 5 batsmen to go with that. So you're probably talking Vince, Russo, Northeast, Weatherly, and Jimmy Adams. I would think that's going to be the 11.
I have to apologise, Ian. I lost the connection slightly there. I have no idea what you just said for the last 2 minutes, but I agree entirely. So,
yeah, I was just speculating on my Championship 11, which listeners will be able to hear. To some extent, there is a bit of different bowling attack, isn't there? That I don't know how much we'll use Chris Wood, perhaps, but Dale-Steyn, Edwards, Abbott, Berg, with Dawson being the spinner, will be probably how we'll go for the start of the season. How does that sound?
Yeah, I think that bowling attack just fills me with more confidence again. However demoralised I'm from the T20 stuff, actually, when you hear Steyn, Abbott, Edwards, Berg as your Championship lineup, I'm like, well, that's 2, 3, or international, ex-international bowlers. Bergie.
I think Phil's gone again. I think he's lost connection there. We'll see when he comes back, if he joins us again.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. Yeah, for all his success in the kind of T20 stuff and one day, would he? I mean, he did make some appearances in the Championship earlier in the year, but I'm not sure we're likely to necessarily see him. I mean, we were using Wheel as an option earlier, but I think he is out injured, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, he's unfortunately another one that's out for the season, so we won't see him. I think the only sort of possibility of somebody we might see who's done okay in the T20s that we haven't seen a lot of over the last few years would be Ryan Stevenson. He may get a game, but I think my first choice would certainly be the bowlers I've just mentioned, and you'd keep Stevenson and Wood as reserve if necessary. Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I've lost you again. I think it might be a good idea to wrap this up, and I can actually say goodbye while I'm still here. So, well, I'm still smiling, even though that was entirely miserable to talk about the T20. So maybe we've come out with some positives after all. It's cricket. It's cricket.
Yeah, I mean, we're sort of got the positives. I mean, how do you feel about the rest of the season? Do you think Hampshire will stay up?
Look, well, at the start we were going to come in the top three. Optimistic. Look, we need, at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we're one of the best 6 teams rather than the 2 worst in the league. I think you look at the Worcestershire, we said right from the start would probably be candidates for relegation. They've only won one. And we've only won one. So we just need to do better than Lancashire, I would say, at this stage. And I think that we can do it. They've played, we're only a point behind them. As long as we keep picking up solid results and beat Lancashire, then I think we can do it. I think Yorkshire could, given that it's quite turbulent there at the moment, and a lot of their star performers are on England duty, I think there's a chance that they could get lured into the bottom patches. But yeah, we have drawn the most as well. You know, if you look at it, so depending on, it's going to be weather related, particularly the more we get into September. Maybe we'll.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close on the basis that we have to play Worcestershire, Lancashire, and Yorkshire in the final few rounds, and positive results against them all should be enough to do it. I'm not so confident that we can. I just feel a bit nervous because of our form, but fingers crossed, and we'll still be in Division 1, but our high hopes of a comfortable campaign have been dashed. Fair enough positives, we have won a white ball trophy, but that has been slightly undermined by the T20 form. I'm going to sign off now, as I think Phil's left us again, and we'll hope to see...
I'm back briefly.
Oh, you're back briefly. Yeah, I was just saying that my gut feeling is we'll just be okay, but I'm very concerned. But yeah, 6 more weeks of really important cricket about to begin, and if we can find 2 wins, then I think we'll do the job.
Yeah. But where are we going to find them? Right, that's it from me. If you want to find me on Twitter, it's at Mr. Webb, although it's MRW3BB. Hopefully catch some of you at the ground at some point in the future, and enjoy the next couple of weeks of some holiday.
Yeah, and I'm at Ian Pearce 100. Tweet me there, or of course you can tweet us at Hantsfanpodcast. We look forward to hearing your feedback, especially about the podcast. Don't just tweet us all the time telling us how rubbish Hampshire are. We know they've not been very good, but we want to try and look forward and hope that it's to another year in Division 1.
Yeah, lovely stuff.
Thanks very much.
All right.